find the people that are interested in Thirlmere Lakes and want to, and people like Julie Sheppard through the NPA was involved, I think. David,
not through NPA.
Rivers SOS. Yeah. Rivers SOS. So we had a few groups here and there.
Well, firstly, my first experiences of the lakes here was when I started teaching at Picton High School in 1984. And we used to bring the kids down here on sports days for kayaking and also later on walking, which was a sport alternative that I introduced at the school when not everyone wanted to do team sports and everything. Then in 1985, NPWS South Metropolitan District Advisory Committee was set up, and it covered the Royal, Heathcote and Thirlmere Lakes National Park. I was invited to go on that committee, and I was actually the chair of that committee for most of the time that I was on it, which was 85 to 89, I think. There were other locals on it. Judith Durbin, who was, I'm going to say some of these local names because some people might know them. Judith Durbin, who was apparently a shop owner in Thirlmere or Thirlmere. She represented the powerboaters, the Thirlmere Powerboat and Aquatic Club. And they were one of the thorns in the side of the NPWS and an issue for everyone who cared about the natural features of the lakes. And also another local bloke called Andrew Huggett. Now, the committee first met in December 1985, and a piece in the Advertiser covered this event, pointing out residents' concerns about poor road access. It was all about the road access. And there were quotes from a Lloyd Turner of Thirlmere, and also the other concerns were the lack of ranger presence. Apparently they only had one day a week where the ranger popped in, and I'm wondering whether we even had that now.
I don't want to interrupt, but I've got the ranger's note from 1974, and it's people with dogs, people collecting firewood, the state of the road. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. These things pop up all along the way. I found Thirlmere Lakes in a very unloved state. And this is what they found: vandalised signs and amenities, erosion in picnic areas, rubbish in picnic areas and also floating on the water, an oil slick on the water, bins knocked about or stolen, and this was a funny bit. It was noted that the change rooms, and I don't even remember there being change rooms, but there were change rooms, there was a peephole cut into the wall of what they assumed to be the ladies' change room. And also the men's toilet had half a wall missing. The water skiing. Oh, I might say that Judith Durbin, who came onto the committee, we'd had a bit of concern about her representing the boat drivers and owners. But by the time she had finished her time on the committee, she was a committed conservationist. It was really good. I don't know if anyone knows Judith Durbin, but she was actually quite a good egg, I thought. You just couldn't enjoy the area. I mean, you couldn't come down and sit around like this. The noise just reverberated throughout the valley. It was horrendous. So consequently, motorised boats and jet skis were to be banned under this plan of management, and they'd already stopped issuing licences in 1995. So that whole thing was knocked on the head. So then we fast forward to New Year's Day 2010, and Linda and I went for a bit of a drive around the district, and we popped in here and we saw the boating lake was just a puddle. We couldn't believe it because 18 months previous, in June 2008, we'd gone canoeing and kayaking on the lake with Jenny and Ingrid, and we'd even photographed musk ducks amongst the reeds. The lakes were beautiful, full, or seemed full and normal, and this was only 18 months down the track. Meanwhile, the issue had generated a lot of media attention, and in late 2010, Professor Philip Pells contacted Rivers SOS, indicating his professional interest in the matter and his desire to help us investigate. Now, he had a son named Stephen, who was a hydrologist, and Philip himself was an eminent engineer specialising in rock mechanics and had a private practice, and Stephen worked for the UNSW Water Research Lab. So both of those really wanted to do something about the issue. They thought it was interesting in the field that they were working in. Amusingly, there was one quirky thing that went viral, the false teeth story. Who remembers that? Well,
German guy.
A set of upper dentures was found amongst the peaty mounds of the now completely dry Nerrigarang. And the Ratcliffes remembered that there was an occasion when a German tourist lost them while yodeling in a boat out on the lake. Now, the papers love this sort of stuff, you know, it's something quirky, and the Chronicle ran this on the front page. And, you know, there were so many really funny things written about it. And, Amanda Partridge, who was writing here, said, the man was apparently overcome with the beauty of the ancient lakes when he burst into a yodel and lost his teeth when they fell into the water. 2011 groundwater monitoring bores were installed by the Office of Water, and also NPWS began photo monitoring water levels. Philip and Stephen Pells also installed their own data loggers in the lake. By the end of 2011, it was announced that an independent inquiry chaired by Dr. Stephen Riley would be held, and submissions were called for. The final report of the inquiry was released in mid-2013 and was roundly criticised for not taking into account the many submissions that had been made on the draft version. The conclusions were still the same and indeterminate, that they couldn't disentangle the impacts of both climate change and mining. Originally, this was actually announced in the papers that there was going to be a Friends of Thirlmere Lakes by Gyral, but he said then it was to be an advisory group for him, and to work with the researchers, and that it was all going to be sort of around him. But that didn't really happen that way. But this wasn't the end of the campaign. As the water levels were still not improving. In May 2016, Professor Pells produced his final report, which identified a linkage between lake water levels and mining. And he predicted that the lakes would most likely eventually refill, but not until mining had ceased.
The problem is we have no yardstick, no monitoring in between the mine when it came within about 600 metres of the lakes. And there was no mining even after these issues were raised. Sorry, no monitoring even after these issues were raised. So when we come to look at what we have, we can only do it on the basis of the data as scientists. And that was what we try to do. Now, why was I brought into that particular role? I think it was mainly because in 2000 I started working for the Sydney Catchment Authority. Before that I'd worked for the EPA. But at that time, this is the really early times, and there were mines going on then that no longer exist, things like Alara mine. And I was remember one day one of our catchment officers came in, he said, "Oh, we just lost a river, or we just lost a creek." And I was a bit flippant and said, "Well, that's pretty careless of you. How could you lose a creek?" What he actually meant was they'd lost the water. And this is Native Dog Creek, where they'd actually fractured the base of the sandstone, and the creek was actually dry from there all the way down to Avon Reservoir. The results for that time period that we looked at, which was a fairly dry period, suggests there was primarily climate related to the filling in the draining of the lakes in this case. I mean dry as in when you could walk out over there and sort of be like a trampoline. It's interesting that if you look at some of the names for these areas, Nerrigarang in an Aboriginal word means place of shaky ground.
But anybody that's here at this particular point in time can't say that there isn't something magical about the lakes. My first experience of the lakes was as a probably 12-year-old. My dad bought a boat down here to go water skiing, and I remember being told that I wasn't to go into the part where all the reeds came up from the bottom, because if I did, they'd grab me and drag me down. And I remember landing in there and trying to lay flat because I was sure it was like one of those movies where things would come up and grab me and I'd just disappear into there. That was my once and only skiing adventure on the lakes. When I look around here, I actually see all of you that have contributed to the lake and the sort of petitioning and community input over the years. And as you say, I remember going with Caroline Graham, canoeing up the river and being told that some of those creeks, the water was still there, you just couldn't see it. That was what the mining companies told us, it was underground. The one thing I have learnt that government only give money if it's for political benefit to them at that particular time. It may not be about goodness of the area, but it might be somebody running for an election. It might be somebody running not even in locally that wants to show that they're good for the environment. So decisions, unfortunately, all get made for political reasons. And I've watched that happen with airports and things like that. And today, for your 10th anniversary of the Friends of Thirlmere Lakes, Mother Nature has certainly turned out a beautiful day for us. It might be a bit chilly, but it's not pouring rain. We're all able to gather here on the edge of something that we've all appreciated for all those years, and it's pretty cool. And I think every single one of you, when I look around, have contributed to the well-being of the lakes here, and I look forward to working with you further into the future.
Citizen science contributions. We got 2 scientific papers out, which we've got a couple of authors here. So that, I think, was a great achievement of Friends of Thirlmere Lakes. If nothing else, we've recorded some threatened species here for eternity. So, aquatic plants, that is. So I think that's a great thing as well. So thank you, everyone. And to Paula, who puts out that newsletter every month. And Jenny for doing those monthly bird surveys. So ecologically, we've still got a lot of stuff happening in the park. So thanks to